Welcome to Running Strong. My name is Will Frantz. I'm a running coach and a strength coach. And if you're not a subscriber to this podcast and you appreciate the information, I'd really appreciate you hitting that subscribe or follow button. It really does help, probably more than I even understand. And if you are a subscriber or you don't want to be, then please just share it with someone else so we can spread this a little bit. Today, I want to talk about my current training cycle. And very honestly, I don't like when people do this, and I was a little reticent to do this, but someone who I coached who just finished a big race, we were talking about training and how different training things or training styles can look, how different training schedules can look for different people depending on you and your goals. So I told her that I would write out my kind of weird training plan, like weekly training structure, in hopes that it might give her some guidance, because she's going to move on and do her own thing for a little while. And spent a while putting this down, and I figured, hey, maybe it would benefit someone else as well. Now, the big things to understand before you look at anybody's training program are, there's a lot of things to understand, which is why I'm not usually a fan of people doing this kind of stuff. It's why I used to share a lot more of my training on the internet. Now it's pretty few and far between, because I don't necessarily think what I do is always the best indicator for what you need to be doing or whoever might be seeing it. But it can be helpful if we have some level of background. So first, goals. If you are training for a swim meet, you shouldn't follow my training because I'm not swimming at all, right? And this is a very asinine example, but basics apply kind of across the board. If you are not looking to have similar goals to me, then following my training is farcical. And so my goals at the moment are, I want to get faster. This is kind of a long-term project, and it's a process. I don't know what to tell you, but looking to get faster. And I realize that's very general. At the moment, I'm focusing on faster at shorter distances because a lower running volume, lower cardiovascular volume fits my weekly schedule better. But ultimately, if I get faster at shorter distances, that will manifest into faster at longer distances. So that's why I just say faster. But I'm trying to get faster, really focusing on kind of a sprint to 5K kind of target right now, with the expectation that getting faster at those paces, speeds, efforts will transition into faster at longer stuff. I also want to get stronger, specifically want to get stronger at the 3 primary lifts for powerlifting. Some of that is just because I enjoy them and I find them fun. Some of that is because I work in a gym and getting better at those lifts and pushing myself to the end points of my capabilities on that lifts help me do that for other people, right? So I'm trying to get better at those movements. I'm doing a little bit of Olympic lifting, largely because I find it fun. I don't actually think anybody who's not trying to compete in Olympic lifting ever has to do Olympic lifting. I just find it enjoyable. It's a fairly new stimulus for me, one I've not done for very long. I think I wouldn't even call it a year. I think I picked up my first Olympic lift like a little over a year ago, but it was really half-assed for a really long time, and it's still like pretty half-assed. It was quarter-assed for a long time, and it's still pretty half-assed, right? So I do some Olympic lifting stuff, and then I guess other big goals when it comes to my running are to spend time with my dogs. So a lot of long runs for me are built around that because it's a bigger priority for me to spend good quality time with my dogs in the mountains than it is for me to get the perfect long run stimulus. I'm also trying to be a little more social. So some of the runs for me are going to be more socially engaged. And I don't do great in big groups, so these aren't group runs. These are runs with like a friend or a partner. And both of them are actually, all of them are a little better than me at endurance, which is fine, right? So it probably means I'm going to be pushing a little bit harder because they can cruise at a much faster pace than me. And also I don't want to lose my climbing. I like climbing. I want to include that on my daily schedule. So with all of that in understanding, let's look at a training program and why certain movements might be in there. And that mess of words I've already said is why my athlete wanted to talk to me about my training, because she also has a lot of goals, a lot of targets, a lot of things she wants to achieve, likes to do a bunch of different sports. So wanted to see what a training program might look like for someone who has a lot more interest than just running and strength training that would help support running. So for me, we're going to start on Monday. Monday cardio. It's hard VO2 max repeats. This can be on a bike or a run, but I can get my heart rate a lot higher from running. The biking is getting better. Biking is a skill. If you don't practice it, then it's going to not do very well for you from a high intensity standpoint, because your legs are just going to burn out before you can really crank your cardio. So I am getting better at the biking. I'm assuming I'm going to get a lot better at it once the ground turns to ice and snow. But I can get my heart rate a lot higher from running, so I usually do that unless my tendons feel bad. And hard VO2 repeats currently are in a 4x4 with a 2-minute rest, 2-minute recovery thing. So I run, warm up. Sometimes I'll take 10 on the warm up, sometimes I won't. And then I run for 4 minutes at a pace that feels shitty, basically like a hard mile or a 5K pace. And then I walk for about a minute, and then I get back to jogging for about a minute, and then I do that 4 times. We're going to see an increase in that volume once I start to get the intensity a little more geared in, but that's the basics on VO2 max work. Same day is squat day. So my lifting is we'll call it a 3.5 day cycle, but a 4-day cycle is how it's programmed. And again, it is geared around powerlifting movements. So day 1 is squat day. And I start with like a snatch prep complex that I kind of took from Garage Strength. I think I tweaked it a little bit. I can't remember what theirs was, but it just gets me ready to do snatches. And it gets the shoulder moving. It involves like a behind the neck press and a snatch balance, and then a couple positions on snatch work. And it helps me practice the movement under minimal load, especially because I'm just not very good at snatches because it takes a long time. And it gets my shoulders moving, especially the shitty one that is still separated, to put weight and catch it over my head. Next is snatches. And I'm currently doing like pause snatches from a block, meaning that I'm pulling from, I don't know what those are, 6 inches probably. It basically pushes me where the bar is just below my knees from the pull, or the first pull. And the pause part means I'm trying to catch in the bottom and then squat up, right? The goal here is to create power. The pause is to help me find that landing position a little better because I'm just not very good at it. Again, I don't do a ton of this every week. I'm consistent with it, but it's never really a high volume focus for me. I'm not an Olympic lifter. I just like doing the Olympic lifts. So this is not a thing that has been like progressing quickly because I haven't put the work into it to make it progress quickly. Now, if my shoulder's being kind of a piece of shit, I may do some high intensity jump work, but I haven't needed to do that for a very long time because the shoulder has actually not been the biggest problem. Now, since I'm doing full snatches, which means that the catch is an overhead squat, this works as the prep work for my incoming squat. Hips are going to be moving because I'm doing a harder version of a back squat in the snatch. As a result, it works as prep work for the back squat. So the next one is a barbell back squat. And I'm doing like 5 heavy sets of 2 to 4 reps here with, we'll call it full-ish recovery in between, probably 2 minutes of rest in between. The reason I say full-ish is I'm not sitting in between sets like a true power lifter for like 6 to 8 minutes, but I am taking enough time that I feel pretty good to go. A couple warm-up sets and then 5 heavy sets of 2 to 4 reps. There's more prescription to it than this. There's a tweak on a program created by Stu Locke from Cardiac Barbell. This is the only part of that program that I'm really using, but the general structure there is slow, progressive overload, increasing in intensity, and then once you go through 9 weeks, then you can repeat it. And I've been doing this for a while and just seeing a lot of improvement on my squats. And I like a back squat. It's a heavy bilateral movement that allows me to generate and test a lot of full body strength. It makes my core do core things. And I'm enjoying it, so I'm keeping it in. Next is sometimes a pairing. I'll sometimes pair these two movements together. Sometimes I'll separate them, but it's a one leg seated hamstring curl. I'm doing like 3 sets of 10 to 15 and a big focus on internal rotation. So I'm trying to keep my tibia, my shin bone pointed upwards as I pull back. It is very tempting if you do a seated hamstring curl to let your feet rotate outwards. And I say feet because it can come from a couple position points, but let your feet rotate outwards and really get you to pull. If you keep your feet rotated inwards, then you're going to get more of those medial hamstrings. Your hamstring is 3 muscles. Kind of think of it as 4 because the biceps femoris has 2 heads, and that biceps femoris is on the outside and it tends to be stronger. And we can have a couple things that create like duck-footedness. Some of it can come from your hip, and then some of it can actually come directly at your knee, where the tibia and the foot are rotated more outwards rather than inwards. And we can start to balance that out if we strengthen the medial hamstrings. All right. I'm doing lighter weight for more reps, pretty much to failure, because I'm trying to instill this pattern and get the semitendinosus and semimembranosus to do work. And I'm pairing that. If I'm pairing it, sometimes I'll just knock out the hamstring curls and then do the squats. But with a front rack Bulgarian split squat, which is a nightmare. It's a front squat position with the bar. It's across the shoulders. I'm doing 2 sets of 4 to 8. It's more quad work. It's a position that reinforces thoracic extension, which is just your upper back being in this position that supports Olympic lifting and good posture and movement and all sorts of stuff, right? So front rack Bulgarian split squats, 2 sets of 4 to 8, pretty low volume, pretty high on the speed. I'm trying to make the bar move faster, make heavy weight move faster. And then final pairing is a 1-leg isometric calf raise at 90 degrees. This is something you almost certainly don't need to do unless you have Achilles tendon problems, which I do. So this is Achilles tendon work. This is not calf work as much as it is tendon work, tendon rehab, tendon prep, tendon strengthening. And I'm pairing that, if the gym's empty enough, with GHG oblique rotations. A GHG is just a glute ham developer, and it is just a way for me to do heavy targeted work on my obliques without using a cable or a bunch of other equipment. So that is Monday. Sounds a lot longer than it is. The cardio takes 30 to 40 minutes, and the lifting usually takes about an hour to an hour and 15, depending on how busy it is and how tired I am. And then I climb with friends in the evening. So that's Monday. Monday is obviously a very heavy day. It is an unpleasant day. I actually enjoy all of it, and that's why I train this way. But it's a tough day. We'll call it that. It's a tough day. Tuesday, cardio. Short run or bike with some like surges or spin-ups. Most of this is going to be easy to like low level, moderate intensity. I'm not trying to push too much fatigue here. There might be some surges if I'm running. There might be some spin-ups if I'm biking. The decision between those two things is largely weather and how bad my legs feel, dependent. So my legs feel pretty bad, and if specifically my tendons feel like they might need a rest, then we'll get on the bike. And if I feel pretty good, then I'll probably do a run and toss in some like slightly higher intensity work, but a really low volume of it. This is largely an easy day for cardio. Then when it comes to lifting, this is a bench day. As bench prep, I just do some dumbbell front raises. I've done other stuff in the past, but the biggest thing that's struggling for me on my bench right now is thoracic extension. You heard me use that term on Monday. This is where your like upper back arches, I don't know, concavely, whatever. You pull your shoulder blades down and we make it arch the opposite of its normal direction. That's thoracic extension. And it's really important for bench press. It's important for Olympic lifts. It's arguably important to be able to do that for your shoulder health in general. And mine isn't great. And a dumbbell front raise is a great way to get some extra shoulder volume in while creating that thoracic extension. And I do 2 sets of like 10 to 15. Almost a failure. Sometimes I'll do it on a cable, but lately it's been more of a dumbbell. The next movement is a flat barbell bench press. Again, this is one of our powerlifting staples. 5 heavy sets of like 2 to 4, much like the back squat. There's more prescription to it, but that's the thing. I'm doing this one largely because I want to get better at bench press. It is a movement that the strength world views as important. I'm not very good at it. A lot of people want to be good at it, mostly men, but not always. And if I can make myself better at it, if I can learn the pitfalls of a movement that I'm not very good at doing, then it can help me help other people to get better at it. It is also pretty effective. It allows you to move a bunch of weight with your chest and shoulders and stuff. And it's a good test of how much my shoulders and elbows and back are doing the thing. If a bench press feels bad, that is usually a warning light for me that something else is about to feel bad. And whenever I take it out or whenever I ignore this, almost always it bites me in the ass later because something else starts to feel like shit. And if I had listened to the fact that the bench press feels bad, then I would have been able to preempt it. So I'm trying to use this heavy movement that I've said in the past is kind of silly as not just a like test of metric whatever for strength for me, but also as a test of whether I need to do some preventative maintenance. If I'm doing a bench press and my shoulder feels bad, it is usually due to some scapular shit that I need to keep working on. If my elbow feels bad, that is usually an indicator that we need to do some work and is going to focus on bicep stuff. It just depends, right? But hit the warning lights. If we have some warning lights in a program that can preempt injuries, that is helpful. I pair this with, right now, it has been a barbell pendlay row, which is where there's a heavy barbell on the ground, and then you yank that thing up to your chest. You hinge over, yank that thing up to your chest, and basically let it fall down to the ground. I'll do a few different things here. The big target for me is upper back training. The muscles in between your shoulder blades, like your rhomboids, and muscles of your mid traps, and even like serratus and whatever. I want those muscles to be strong because they're, again, important for shoulder health. One of my shoulders is separated from some dumbness about a decade ago. Tripped, fell, landed on shoulder. Not a fun time. But it's not just important for those of us with shoulder problems. It's important in general if you want to be strong. A strong upper back is an important health and performance metric, right? So for me, I'm doing it in some kind of an explosive movement fashion right now. I've done seated cable rows. I've used a hammer strength machine with kind of a wide grip, but I want my scapula to move around my rib cage here. That is the thing that I will fill, and I don't actually care too much what this movement looks like as long as my scapula are moving around my rib cage. I probably change this movement more than I change a lot of the rest of this program, especially on the big stuff. I will also pair this. Further, I will use straps here to do this lift if I'm doing something like a barbell row or a pendlay row with a barbell, any of that stuff. And I will use straps here because due to the amount that I climb and lift and do other stuff, I have a propensity towards some elbow stuff. And this is not the movement where I necessarily want to be focusing on my grip. I'm fine to let my grip get stronger in other places and let it take some rest here, so I'll use straps. Pair that with a cable lateral raise, extra shoulder work. They build strength. They build some like side volume to your shoulders. I don't really care about most of that shit. They're really good for your rotator cuff. And again, bad shoulders. So like 2 to 3 sets of 8 to 15 that I will usually just superset with the pendlay rows. And I've done these with dumbbells, I've done those with cables, it doesn't matter. It is largely again, preventative maintenance thing for me. Next set, again, is a superset. It's going to be some kind of heavy calf raise. I was not doing this for a while when I had more Achilles stuff. Achilles is feeling better, not perfect, but better. So I'm back to training calves. And I am currently, if it's open, doing a single leg calf raise on the hack squat machine. I would do it on a leg press if we had one that worked well for that. But there's a bunch of ways. I've also done like standing, holding a dumbbell. It doesn't matter. Smith machine, whatever. Heavy calf raise stuff. And then I'm doing an incline reverse crunch for abs, specifically focusing on the lower abdominals and like pelvic control. If I'm doing well on time, I will do something for the biceps. Usually hammer curls because they're fast and they tend to work preventatively for an elbow issue I get, tennis elbow, for those of you who know. But I often skip this. I rarely do bicep work on this day for time reasons, because I hate it, and because I am usually focused on trying to get this workout over with. This is not a long workout for me, but it is one that I'm usually trying to fit in between clients. I do that kind of in general, but that's especially true on Tuesday, because Tuesday is a very busy day for me at the club. Next, Wednesday is a day off from lifting. Cardio is a long run with the dogs. I spend at least 3 hours out in the mountains with the dogs. If I can't do that for some reason, I will run roads by myself and then take them out. But this run is honestly more about them than it is about me. It's a good long stimulus that gives me a lot of time on feet and a dumb amount of climbing, and it's really good for my mental health to be surrounded by like trees and mountains and all that shit and spend time with the dogs. But this is more about my time with the fluffy creatures than it is about my time getting a long run in, and I'm okay with that because, again, we talked about goals. How long have I been rambling? 20 minutes ago. Thursday, cardio. It's a medium, moderate run. This has been about an hour, and during that hour, I've been collecting like 15 to 20 minutes at like a mid-lactate threshold, so I'll run most of it easy, and then I'll push for some like non-prescriptive intervals to get my heart rate up. This will soon be shifting a little more often to a run with a friend that I haven't been running with a lot lately due to schedule stuff and injury stuff on my part. But that will be, and she's a better runner than I am, so this will probably serve a pretty similar training stimulus where it will give me some like mid-level lactate push, and it'll also be good for my general sanity. Thursday is also deadlift day, and deadlift day sucks. Whatever. I kind of enjoy them. I enjoy them less as I get stronger because you have to pick up more weight. But deadlift day. First is a pairing. It is a dumbbell lateral split squat. So spread feet wide, toes forward, 2, and like 8 to 12 per side. The whole goal is to engage the adductors and get the hips moving. I'll pair that with a behind the neck push press. It's 2x5, second set heavy. I'm trying to, again, engage that thoracic extension, thoracic spine, and start to promote some power development for the cleans I'm about to do. Because we really want that thoracic engagement and a bunch of power development in order to do cleans well. And now, moving into cleans. I'm looking to build to a few sets of heavy 1 to 2 reps. I have been doing them from a box, but I'm just switching to the floor. The goal here is to create power using a movement that I find fun and interesting. Again, this is an Olympic lift. This is not something I've been doing for a very long time, so I'm not great at it, but I still find it interesting, and I'm seeing progression even with the incredible lack of frequency that I'm doing the movement. If my ankles are being shitty, they've been fine. They've just been shitty the past couple months since I sprained them, but they're coming back. Whatever. I will switch to power snatches at a slightly lighter weight. Power snatches you don't catch in that full depth. You catch in a more standing position, and that means I don't have to go through that ankle dorsiflexion under really heavy weight at the bottom. If they're behaving, which they generally do, I will do a full clean. Now, by doing cleans off the ground, that's why I've been making this shift. It provides a good warm-up of the deadlift pattern at a lighter weight. So the first bit of a clean is an explosive deadlift, and by doing cleans as prep, it works power movement, it gets all this other stuff engaged, and it functions as a prep for a deadlift, which is next. We'll do a warm-up set or 3, and then we're looking to do 5 heavy sets of like 2 to 4 reps. Again, much like everything else, there's prescriptive. I have these in here for the exact same reason. I have barbell back squats. I like them. I want to get better at them. And they are a movement that helps generate and test a lot of full body strength. So that's why the deadlifts are in there. Once I do heavy deadlifts and feel hateful, I move to some deficit speed deadlifts. So I will pull from like a 3 to 4 inch lift. Less weight, usually 3 by 5 reps, and I want the bar to move fast. I want it to almost fly at the top. The elevated flat platform also forces more quad engagement for me. I struggle with the pull off the ground from a deadlift. Some people struggle more with lockout. I struggle more with the bottom. You got to probably do the leverages as well as probably some form thing, but definitely some leverages. So for me, it helps me get more of that quad engagement and reinforce that pattern, as well as putting a little extra volume into the deeper muscles of my back, like multifidus, erector spinae, etc. Also, by doing speed, we can get a little more volume in on this movement while working at a lighter weight, so it doesn't push so much like overall systemic fatigue. And I will sometimes pair that with, or I might do these separately depending how busy the gym is, a leg extension. And I've been doing 3 sets of 10 to 20. The whole goal here is extra quad work and some stimulus on the patellar tendon. So if somebody's sitting on the leg extension for a half an hour and I can't get to it, I will do sissy squats. I will do wall sits. I want something where my knee is bent and my tendon is having to do tendon things. I've done loaded wall sits. I've done loaded isometric split squats. I'm good with like some sort of sissy squat, whatever works, whatever gets that knee to go through flexion extension allows me to focus on putting some stress through the patellar tendon so my knees get less pissed over time. And then once we're done with that, we'll do another pairing. I think I did these on squat day, but 1 leg isometric calf raises at 90 degrees. This is, again, work for the Achilles tendon, and I will do usually some tricep work here. Preferred form is dips because it promotes better shoulder function by getting my elbow behind my body. If I'm going to skip something, this is going to be another thing I'm going to skip. It is going to be the dips, and I will usually skip that for time. I will say deadlift day sometimes can take an hour and a half. Usually able to keep it to an hour, but sometimes it doesn't take much, right? Like something can go a little awry, or a piece of equipment can be taken, or somebody can talk to me mid-session for 5 to 10 minutes, and I enjoy talking to members, so I don't mind, but then suddenly I have to get done, so I will skip this sometimes. Friday is just cardio. Trail run with a friend. It's usually 5 to 6 miles on fairly flat terrain. He's primarily a road runner. He's faster than me. We're just trying to get into the mountains a bit. This is very similar to the work I do Thursday. It is largely easy with a little bit of lactate, low to mid lactate stuff, depending on the terrain. Rest day from lifting. Saturday, Friday, I forgot to mention this. Thursday or Friday, I will usually climb again with a friend. Usually pretty easy. That's more of a gathering thing, but like sometimes I'll push like a route hard. Saturday, cardio. I have been doing a short session here that's been changing a lot. And I've done some easy work. I've done a VO2 max session here. I've done bike work. I want to get something in is the point. Now that my ankles are starting to feel ready to go again, this is where I would like to do some smallish volume of short sprints. We're talking like 10-meter flies, where you like run in, accelerate for 10 meters, and then try to push really hard for the second 10 meters. And I'd like to push that. I'm not 100% sure where I'm going to set this up. I think I can figure it out close by. If so, then we're going to aim for that. If not, then we'll see. But I would love to get back to sprints here. I was just getting into it as I turned the first ankle. And that was one of the things that really pissed me off, because I was stoked to get back to it and then immediately had to stop. Saturday is also a lifting. For me, it's an overhead press day. If I'm going to miss a lifting day, this is the day I'm going to miss. I don't care about it as much, and I probably hit it 2 out of every 3 weeks, realistically. 3 out of every 5, I don't know. And it is just, none of the movements on here are nearly as important to me. None of them really do anything as much as the other 3 days do. I would much rather get some extra cardio in. This is also a climbing day for me with friends. I might start playing a little tennis here every other week or every third week. So like, this is just not the priority lifting day. But I can usually get to the climbing gym a half an hour early and get almost all of this done in like 30 to 40 minutes. So I will start with a cable drag curl paired with a behind the neck strict press. So a cable drag curl, you stand up, you hold, ideally for me, 2 cables because it takes less time, but you can do it one side at a time. The cables are behind you, your elbows are behind you, your elbows stay behind you, which means your shoulder is technically in hyperextension, which is just the elbows behind the body, and then you squeeze your biceps, come back down. It's good work for your biceps because it's in a really lengthened position. 2, it forces your shoulder into a good functional position, in that most of us don't spend a lot of the time with the elbow behind the body, as I do some bicep work. If I can avoid doing stupid rehab shit, I will every time. I would much rather do work that feels meaningful, that also functions as rehab. See exercise 2. Behind the neck strict press. I will usually pair these together because the gym is pretty empty at this time of day. So I will start the rack. It also allows me to claim a rack for the upcoming push presses. Start with bar in a back squat position, press overhead 8 to 12 times. Second set's going to be heavier. Again, just like with the behind the neck push presses, it engages the thoracic spine, it gets the rotator cuffs moving, gets the shoulders moving, and it like actually does directly prep for the push press I'm about to do. So once you've done a couple sets of both of those things, we're going to do some barbell standing push presses. We're looking for maybe a warm-up. I think I do 1 warm-up set usually here because it's not as heavy of a movement. If I'm push pressing like 130, 150, I don't know. If I'm back squatting 300, like it just takes more time to build to that back squat than it does this. So 5 heavy sets of 2 to 4 reps. It's a heavy overhead movement with also works on some power development. It also, in theory at least, helps my snatch because it pushes up and creates that very similar catch position. If I cared about doing the jerk portion of a clean and jerk, it would be really good prep for that, which it is if I ever decide to get back into that. It is good accessory work for the bench. It is a shoulder developer. And it's a little bit of power development from the legs, which if we're trying to get back into sprinting and speed, that is useful. So barbell standing push presses. And then I will do a pair of an incline dumbbell press. We're looking for like 3 sets of 8 to 12 here. Bench is going to be anywhere from like 35 to 45 degrees. I tend to find at the moment the best if it's about 40 degrees. A little lower than that, it's not going to quite hit what I want. Too much higher than that, I start getting this weird arch where I'm getting more in my shoulders than in my chest. I want to grow the upper chest muscle fibers to improve my bench because a flat bench doesn't do that very well. And this helps work accessory movement for a bench. I will say 3 things. This is probably technically the most vanity movement I have in my program, in quotes. It is one of the first things I'll drop, and I also hate it. This is one of the few movements I do solely because it helps another movement. It really is not a thing I enjoy doing. I don't particularly like higher rep chest work. It's not a sensation I enjoy. I will pair this with wide grip lat pull downs, 3 sets of like 10 to 15. And this is targeted at making my scapula, my shoulder blades, do their job and create depression into that thoracic extension. I always fail in the like surrounding scapular muscles before my lats, which is pretty inevitable if you're doing these properly and you have any sort of normal muscle ratio between your teres major and your lats. It's really good for climbing. It's really good for everything else you've heard me say thoracic extension on, and yeah, does the job. And then finally, some adductor machine. My adductors are kind of weak, and I do this exercise at the climbing gym where I have access to an adductor machine because we don't have one at the gym where I work. So I toss in a couple sets here. And then I climb with friends or maybe play tennis in the future. And then finally, Sunday is more often than not a rest day. If I feel really good, I will take Ted out for a couple miles, but there's absolutely no obligation to do that. It's just if I feel good or if it'd be good for my mental health. But more often than not, I use this as a full rest day because I think rest days are important, and it can partially just be a mental rest from training, right? Like even if I go on this Sunday run, it's never really going to be like a training run in my head. It is a dog run, and we can like stop to sniff whatever he wants to sniff. It is largely for him to get him some movement. That's it. I have taken a break from real plyometric training while the ankles have been recovering. I am going to start doing a 3-day split of plyos that should take about 10 minutes each again soon. Those are going to happen as a run warm-up. So that will actually, like time allotment wise, be included in the cardio. So like I will do probably Monday, take a little bit less out of the warm-up and do some plyos as a warm-up for VO2 work. I will do some higher intensity plyos on maybe Thursday as prep on the same day as deadlift, and then I would do some very like restorative deep plyos on Saturday, and that'd be how I would split that up. I haven't been in there again because of the ankle and the Achilles and that whole complex, but they will be coming back soon. So I hope this was helpful and not just incredibly boring. Again, I'm not a huge fan of talking about my training. I think it's not usually helpful to people, but it's why I dove so deep into the explanation for why things are there. So even if you never want to do a back squat ever, that's fine. I don't care. We can at least understand why I'm going to put something like a snatch before a back squat, right? It's a power production movement. It's a harder full movement that would like prep for the squat. So if you're going to do something like a Bulgarian split squat, then a single leg box jump might actually be really appropriate there. Might not, but it definitely could be, right? And this is kind of how we can think about when it comes to movement. Because you'll notice I didn't mention like rolling or band work or the stupid shoulder rotation thing, because I don't fucking do them because I find them really boring and I hate them. I do some stretching that I didn't mention in here, but that's more restoration at the end of my day, and it's like 5 minutes. Other than that, this is pretty much what I do for movement. All of it I would consider to be some level of quality work. There's very little fluff here, in my opinion. There's some we can always do better. I'm sure I will disagree with that statement in a year, because every time I look at a program I wrote a year later, I see ways to make it less shit. But it does feel like we're at least moving in a better direction constantly. Anyway, if you have any questions, please shoot me a message. If you want any explanations on these kind of things, I'm happy to talk to you about it. But this is what my training looks like. It's probably not exactly what yours should look like, but maybe you can get some lessons from it so that you can train better in the future. Hope you have a great week.